An update in terms of the outcomes of the Uyinene Mrwetyana case. Let's go there live.
That we decide on which courts these cases are to be heard in, which cases are destined for the High Court, making sure that investigations are completed, working with the police, investigative agencies, to make sure that to the extent that there are any challenges with investigations, that we are able to unlock those challenges so that cases can get attention speedily and that we can try and ensure that these matters are investigated properly. So I thought it's appropriate to introduce her and some of the questions, if there are any relevant to that, she will be requested to answer those questions. So thank you very much for the opportunity to engage. I think it's important as the prosecuting authority that from time to time we'd like to engage. And in the context of gender-based violence and gender-based crimes committed against women and children in our country, the prosecuting authority takes these cases very seriously. And so in line with the approach of government, we as the prosecution also want to ensure that we give the cases the necessary attention and that cases are speedily dealt with, taking into account the volumes of cases that are on our court rolls. And that will always remain an impediment to us to be able to move cases fast through the courts. But we will try our best to ensure that cases get the necessary attention that they deserve, both for the victims and for the families of those victims. And so we try to ensure that cases are dealt with speedily. So that's the context, and that is why I'm here personally, is really to reinforce that message and to say this is the way that we will do our work. To the extent that prosecutors have been involved in prosecuting cases in our courts, we will look at how we enhance the work that they do. We will make sure that when cases are destined for the high courts, that advocates will come to the lower courts when cases are being postponed, when bail is being imposed. We will ensure that our advocates are dealing with those matters. And also those cases that will be in the regional courts, we will ensure that experienced prosecutors are seized with those matters so that those cases can be dealt with properly. And our main objective is to ensure that justice is done. At the end of the day, justice must be done in matters. And we must make sure that as the prosecution, we are able to place all the relevant evidence before the courts. That's our role. And working with the police, it's an important part of what we do, because the police investigate. The prosecution authority doesn't investigate. And so we need to strengthen our partnerships with the police, and that is what we are doing. We work very closely with the police, and particularly in the gender-based violence matters, we will ensure that that is done. And we'll demand that the work and the way in which we do our work, that is enhanced and that the quality of the work is improved. So I think that's in a nutshell why we are here. The matter was postponed in court today. So if there are any questions relevant to that, then we are happy to respond to some of those questions. Thank you very much.
About the other matters.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Uyinene from Newsroom Africa. We know that the merits of the case have not been dealt with yet. We, of course, today heard that the investigations have been complete. But I just want to clarify something that we've seen. Obviously, this case has really been of interest in the public. And we've seen reports that the accused has at some point confessed to raping and killing Uyinene. So I just want clarity on that for further reporting and analysis. Thank you.
Yes, I think that as I indicated in court today, all the evidence has been handed to the defense and the accused. So those aspects will be revealed and will be dealt with in court. So when we appear in the High Court, then all that evidence will be placed before the court. It wouldn't be correct for me now to be discussing the detail of the evidence that's contained in the docket. And I think the defense advocate of the accused needs to be able to consult adequately and properly with the accused regarding the contents of this docket. the appropriate time that evidence will be revealed in court.
Doesn't that... Natalie Malchas, ETV. So, what is expected to happen on Thursday? And how is that different from what will eventually happen in the High Court on the 15th?
Perhaps I have a follow-up to Natalie's question as well, Vanessa from the SABC. We understand that the murder accused in this matter had made a confession. And we also hear today that the matter has been postponed until Thursday and then the 15th for the High Court. You know, to a layman, we'd assume that if there's a confession, that what would follow is possibly a plea and sentencing agreement, or can we expect this matter to run a full trial in the face of a confession having been received at this point?
Yes, so on Thursday, we've indicated, the postponement is to give the defense advocate the opportunity to take proper instructions from the accused regarding this matter. So in other words, he did indicate to the court that he's read the docket, and I think we all heard that, and so he will be in a position to take instructions on exactly that. What is the intention of the accused? What does the accused want to do when the charges are going to be put to the accused in the High Court? So that will be revealed next Friday. The charges, next Friday in the High Court, the charges will be put to the accused. In the interim, the accused and his lawyers will be in consultation to determine what they're going to do in court. So we don't know. That is what currently what the position is. And so on Thursday, it's to formally transfer the case to the High Court. The accused will receive the indictment and other relevant court documents to effect that transfer to the High Court for trial on the 15th of November in the High Court.
Perhaps just another question around whether you've made any contact with the family. Do you know how the family is doing?
Yes.
The family of Uyinene?
Yes, we have been in contact with the family. I will ask Advocate Karigama just to indicate what's happening.
The family is not in Cape Town, so we have had telephonic updates being given to them, and they are, in fact, they've expressed to me that they're quite happy with how this matter is being handled, and so they will only come down to Cape Town when the matter is in the High Court. So I've explained the formalities, for example, of the transfer to the High Court and so forth, and they are quite happy. They definitely expressed the appreciation for the manner in which this matter has been dealt with, not only by the NPA but also by SABC. So they are quite happy.
My name is Thandi, SABC. Can you be able to confirm to us the charges that will be laid against the accused?
Yes, broadly, currently there's three charges. It's murder, the charge of rape, and the charge of defeating the ends of justice. Is that correct?
2 charges of rape.
2 charges of rape.
Can you explain that?
Yeah.
2 charges.
2 counts of rape.
2 counts.
Yeah, sorry, Sunday Times. Could you please explain what the second charge of rape, why that's been introduced? And so there was one prior to...
Well, it just depends on the nature of the evidence. So again, that detail will be revealed once we are in court.
Advocate, perhaps just another question. In the time that Uyinene was murdered, there was a spate of incidents of murders against women and children across the country, but also in the Western Cape. For example, the incident of the young woman in Bellville. Can someone just give me a name? No.
Volksking.
That's right. Lynette Volks. Is it Lynette?
Lynette.
Yes. There was her. There were a spate. Can you give us an update? Also, thank you for mentioning Jessie Hess. So we understand that to date, there have been no arrests yet. What is the status with regards to at least here in the Western Cape of those murders that we've seen?
So like I said, all those cases are being followed up by my office, and Advocate Karigama with other advocates are in charge of ensuring those cases get necessary attention. You will know that when the police do an investigation in relation to any crime, The first stage of an investigation is to gather evidence and then to identify suspects. And sometimes suspects are not identified immediately. So some of those matters, that is the reason why people have not been arrested, but work is being done. So I'm going to ask Advocate Karigama just to briefly respond to some of the details that you asked. We can't obviously talk about all the cases that we are busy with, because it's just many cases that we are busy with. But just to give an approach in terms of what we are doing, I think would answer some of the concerns.
Okay. So when someone is arrested for a murder in the Western Cape, what happens is that docket or copy thereof is sent to our offices for me to read and determine the appropriate forum of that matter, and also to have the matter allocated. Let's say if it's High Court, an advocate is allocated immediately. 2 advocates, in fact, are allocated immediately. One of those advocates is always a Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions. Those matters are then prepared basically for prosecution in the High Court. The ones that go back to the lower court, that investigation is managed by very experienced senior public prosecutors in the lower court. Uyinene's matter was no different. In respect of the matters that you do mention, I'll also add Janica Mallow, which is the 13-year-old that was found. That matter is with us. We are guiding the investigation, as well as Jessie Hess, also an advocate. 2 advocates are dealing with it in our office. In fact, 3, because I've allocated it to junior and senior as well as myself. So the investigation part, we are there. It is being guided, it is being prioritized. And once that is done and we are able to identify a suspect where we have sufficient evidence, that person will be arrested and brought before court. In respect of the matter of Lynette Volkskenk, exactly the same. That matter will be heard in the High Court, as well as Megan Kremer will also be heard in the High Court. And often those matters are sent to me within 14 days of the first appearance of the arrest of an accused. And immediately an advocate is allocated, and so these matters are prioritized. In respect of child murders, you will find that many of these matters are actually heard in the High Court. The reason for that is it follows the same process. We prioritize all child murders. In fact, our office sits on child death reviews across the province at 5 of our big mortuaries: Tygerberg, Salt River, George, Worcester, Paarl, where we identify child murders. So we review the deaths of children that went through the mortuaries a month before. We sit with our pathologists, we sit with pediatricians from Red Cross, etc. And we identify child murders as early as that. Those matters come straight to our office. Some of them are prosecuted in the lower court, but the bulk of them are actually prosecuted in the High Court. And you've seen the conviction rates. They are very high because of the expertise put behind our child murders.
So the message that we want to send to society is one, that these cases will get all the necessary attention. We will throw all our resources at them. We will ensure that the vacancies of the prosecution are filled. And there is currently a move, as we speak, that posts have been advertised. So we want to capacitate the prosecution correctly, and we want to ensure that the expertise that we need to deal with certain types of crimes, like crimes against violence against women and children, organized crime, and all other serious crimes are dealt with by very senior prosecutors. In order to do that, we must ensure that our other posts are filled, and so that we can allow the experienced people to deal with the more difficult and challenging cases. And that is the approach. The message to society is really that it's not business as usual. We want to turn this around, and we want to ensure that the crime rates come down. That's the ultimate objective, that we stop crime from being committed in our communities. The prosecution will do everything in its power with civil society, with partners, with the police, to ensure that we play our role to try and address the crime that we are seeing in the country at the moment.
So I just had one last question linked to that. Where are your vacancies, and do some of them lie at that high level, those vacant posts?
Yes. We don't have many vacancies at the higher level in my office. There are some, but it's probably in the region of about 16% of the prosecutorial posts. We are currently filling those vacancies. And then we have vacancies in our lower courts, in those ranks, and we are filling those posts as we speak as well. So there's a process. Hopefully by January, the end of January, all the recommendations for appointments to those posts will have been made. The adverts have been sent out, and applications have already been received at my office by various lawyers and prosecutors internally. Some of it will be promotion posts, and in some instances we'll be taking lawyers from outside of the prosecution to join the prosecution as well. So that is the strategy, to resource, capacitate, and then to ensure that the cases get the necessary attention by senior people.
Yes. Oh, the last one. Advocate, you spoke of the high volume of in your court role, especially involving the killing of women and children. Can you be able to give us an idea how big is that court role? How many are you dealing with right now that are in court role?
Yeah, look, when I spoke about volumes of cases, I'm talking generally on our court rolls. As you know, you've just been in a court now and you see that the court is full, which means that there are cases on that court roll today. And every day there are so many cases, which is an indication of the extent of crime in the country. As far as the gender-based violence and sexual offences, there are dedicated courts to deal with gender-based violence and sexual offences. So we've got a separate way to deal with those matters. I think that's a very important thing, and it's also focused around the victims. It's focused around the victims, and it's linked to our Tutuzela care centres, where victims of sexual violence can access services. And so it starts there, and then it comes to dedicated sexual offences courts. So in Wynberg, for example, there are dedicated sexual offences courts. So all those cases are then on those court rolls. As to the exact numbers, I cannot give it to you now offhand, but the total amount of cases currently on our court rolls in the province is in the region of about 35,000 cases that are in the on the court rolls in the province. But that are all cases, not just the serious cases. So the normal thefts, the normal shoplifting cases are all included, and that's the bulk of the cases that we have in the province.
Can you just get the clarification of the spelling of your name, please, ma'am?
CURRIE-GAMWO.
I assume those were the last questions. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you for your time.
See you.
We really appreciate it.
All right, ma'am.
Can do Afrikaans for Vanessa, please?
Bonnie will do Afrikaans.
We just need to ask for the summary. We can try to keep it short.
Please, Erin.
Thank you.
Okay, good to see you. Thanks so much.